Hello everybody and welcome back to the campaign diary for my Rime of the Frostmaiden campaign, Aracséa edition. In this session, the party combat the weather, kill a man's pet and slaughter a romantic couple. For those of you keeping track of time, only one in-game day has passed since the end of this session, making it the 4th of Caerldin or the 1st Assolane of Caerldin. We began this session with a brief recap since it has been nearly 2 months or just over, since we all last played together. Apologies to all of you who are staying along. It's just a rather unfortunate circumstance, scheduling issues, blah blah, all that nonsense. However, after many weeks of trying to sort something out, we did manage to get a game. Now, unfortunately, I do have some more bad news. I don't know how soon the next game is going to be either, because more scheduling issues. Oh man, being an adult with jobs, it's difficult. Anyway, so we began, after the brief recap, with the group heading out immediately for Mead, which was a 4.5-hour journey. And on that journey, the party encounter an air elemental. I made it out like it was going to be a random encounter. Well, I got them to roll dice and stuff, but it wasn't really. I just wanted to test them with a CR5-6 kind of area, so air elemental, kind of good, mix it in with the storms and stuff. Just to see how they fared with their new level 3 abilities, because they're all relatively newly level 3 now. As expected, Rime, the human barbarian, went down, and even Mutiny went down in this combat. Rime has somewhat of a reputation now amongst the players of just going down instantly in the fight. They got some good use out of their new things. It was the first time Mutiny's player had actually got to use Azazel, the polar bear, in combat, which seemed pretty good. First time I've seen the new Beastmaster Ranger from Tasha's in action, and it seems okay actually. It seems okay. Rime put her Path of the Wild Beast to use. This is the one where you can choose an animal-ish form, an extra attack when you change. She used the tail, I believe, which is something like you can use a reaction to attack back if you get attacked. That's what you could do with the tail. And of course we had Scorching Ray, the first of Stronus's new level 2 spells. That was some good consistent damage coming from those. And yeah, it went pretty good. Aside from 2 people going down, that's kind of to be expected. I think they didn't really use all of their gizmos. I think they probably could have handled it fine anyway. But yeah, it was an interesting test. I still think they're much capable of handling things way harder than that, as evidenced by the CR6 giant skeleton they had to fight against. But we shall see as the game goes on. We shall see how they continue to use their abilities and grow and learn their classes and things like that. A word of warning for people: there might be. I have told them that if they before we get to level 4, or once we get to the level 4 level up, if they're not happy with how their class or their subclass, I will allow them to change that just at one time, because sometimes it takes a while for people to get the feel of that if they're going to enjoy playing their class, etc. So far, most of them has said that they're fine with what they've got. I think Rainer's character wants to change a few feats around and things like that. But yeah, so just in case anything swaps over, I will note that in a later session. So yes, the air elemental. So what happened after that? They had a short rest after that, and a short rest out on the road, and it gave a little opportunity for Stronus to give a bit more RP, because he had to kind of resurrect the other 2, and I felt like it was good for him. It felt like I just yawned. It felt like a good moment for Stronus, because I felt like the other group have been picking on him quite a bit for some reason. I don't really know why. So it's a good chance for him to open up some things RP wise. For instance, there's a small moment where he said to the other 2, well, you can't be going down in a fight. I'm no good. I'm old, but I'm no good without you, kind of thing. He said something like that anyway, paraphrasing. Yeah, so anyway, during that like tenderness moment, I described to them that their characters kind of hear like a popping noise, like a snap in the air, and I kind of go into like a cinematic mode and describe to the players a sonic boom almost like far off above the Dragon's Tooth Mountains, along with like a rapidly descending burning comet is how I describe it, and it leaves behind a flaming trail with bits that seem to scatter off of it. I tell them that all their characters would hear is just like the popping and maybe see a dispersal of clouds. And like the thing itself is way too far away for them to see. It was more of a thing, more of a cinematic moment for me to describe to the players would know, because it's cool and it helps aid in the later story moments. A bit like in in a video game where something happens and then the scene pans to them. For that to happen for the players can witness, not the in-game characters. Regardless, they all kind of go, "Oh, what was that?" And they kind of come to the conclusion that maybe it's a comet or some strange weather phenomenon, various different things. But I will tell you guys what it really is. Spoiler warning: it is the Id Ascendant, a nautiloid. It's an illithid mind flayer plane hopping vessel. So when I first read about the Id Ascendant quest in the Rime of the Frostmaiden book, I knew I had to add it in somewhere. It was a bit weird. Well, first I thought it was a bit of a weird addition to chuck into the story, but it is interesting nonetheless. So I knew I had to chuck it in somewhere. So I knew I was going to include it. I knew it was going to be like a nice cinematic moment at some point. One of the players, the player who plays Raina, loves Illithid. Thinks they're like probably one of the coolest things to come out of D&D. Interesting side note: if someone was going to choose a psionic based character, someone with psychic abilities, this was going to be a massive part of the campaign. It was going to because one of the whole hooks for getting to the Id Ascendant is that people start hearing like telepathic messages. So if these are going to be psionic abilities, which is a relatively new thing in Aracséa, the idea of psionic abilities. So yeah, it was going to be a big part of the campaign if one of the characters chose to go down the psychic route. But alas, they didn't, unless one of them dies and one of them chooses it, in which case it will become a more important thing. So instead, it's just a chance to present this wider world and perhaps use a mind flayer or two down the line. And I think this kind of thing will be very much later down the line. Oh, jeez, just another yawn. Anyway, the party arrives at Mead after this whole revelation, which is a very small village. There's no wall around it, and there's very little, very untrained and ill-equipped militia / guards. They have a brief conversation with one of the guards who seems to be outside a large central building, which is actually a refurbished Mead Hall. They've kind of remade it into a town hall. The guard treats them a bit like nobles and tells them that the speaker has recently died and that the entire town is in very low spirits, not motivated to do anything until another speaker has been elected. But no one is willing to run because everyone's a bit ill-motivated. At any rate, they travel to the Withen's Reach Hall, which is like a 5 minutes out of the village. This is a massive change I've made from the book, just changing the Mead Hall in the town to a town hall and then moving a Mead Hall like outside of the village and changing it almost completely. It's more or less like a Viking longhouse style kind of building with like a large dragon carved into the wood of the rooftop. They get there and they see evidence of these rumoured giant that broke in. The warehouse door is completely destroyed. There's like blood on the floor. They speak to the proprietor of the Withen's Reach Hall, and that's Fef Morin. He's like an elderly human. He's the owner of the Mead Hall. He recounts what he witnessed, or more likely what he heard, and like told them what's gone missing. The party offer to track down the giant and bring back the much sought after Mead so they can get the town up and running. Fefko continues to say, well, he can't offer you very much in ways of reward. He does have a bottle of like a Mead Reserve. It's 1257 Reserve, so it's like 10-year-old Mead that he can give them. And they more or less go, oh yeah, that's fine. Half of them expect pay. Well, I think did Stronus expect payment. I think Stronus wanted a bit more, but the others were fine to just do it as a good deed. Rayna, of course, was willing to take the mead, no problem. So he also gives them. Sorry, I'm yawning again. Jeez, he gives them 3 nights stay and board for the day. And they have a long rest overnight. In the morning, fresh faces, they head outside, they follow some tracks that leads them to the dungeon. The aforementioned... well, I didn't aforemention it. Regardless, they get to the dungeon. And they start making their way through the Verbeeg cave. At one point they come into this icy cavern and they fight a polar bear originally they didn't want to fight the polar bear, but then they just through some bad animal handling rolls they eventually ended up fighting this polar bear. They did Mutiny speak with animals at one moment, and the bear revealed to them that it was seemed to be subservient to something called Doug. So yeah, you can imagine how that kind of went down. They fought the bear, they killed the bear. Stronus noticed in this room there was a statue of the Wild Mother, Mithea, one of the old Lost Lords of the North. Like frozen underneath the ice in this cave. It's area 7 on the map if I've put it on screen. And I described this statue as I really would like some art done of this. It's like of a long-haired woman with this gown and her arms outstretched, and coming like from beneath the wings of the gown is like all the animals of the forest just coming out of the gown. I'm sure I've seen some art done somewhere, and I can see it in my head how I'd want it to look, but I don't know. I'm not particularly good at artwork. Music is more my thing. Anyway, they're kind of doing all of that. They're figuring out if they want to dig through the ice, which is a weird thing to do in the middle of like after King a thing. And Mutiny notice a torch in the corridor where they've come from, and like a figure just looking around the corner, and hears someone kind of say, it must have been the wind, or something like that. And they assume it's Doug. They luckily this creature didn't see them. And they go on to continue the rest of the cave. While walking, not stealthily, should I mention, walking around this area, Doug finds them and goes, "Oh, who are you guys?" And then another fight begins, and they eventually end up killing Doug. But just as they do, the ogre, which is the giant that Doug has almost like employed or befriended to attack the Withenstreet Hall warehouse, appears, and they have to fight an ogre as well. They are convinced for a while that they can't do this, and they think about running away, but they are all like on low resources by this point. But they kill it regardless. It's not a very interesting fight, really. Then they contemplate. One thing I forgot to mention is that when they killed Doug, he kind of shouted out, said, "Oh, we're gonna." Or in the fight with Doug, at least, he said, "Oh, there was going to be." He was having friends over. Is what he said. And when he died, he also said, "Oh, Garg, avenge me," or something like that. And Garg will come up later. So the party now search the place to find the mead. Stronus goes back to try and chip away at some of this. At this Wild Mother's statue beneath the ice to get to it. He manages to identify that the area around the ice, if it was to somehow be like warmed up, would basically cast greater restoration on people once a week. And I kind of hinted at the idea that this could later on in the campaign perhaps be like a stronghold for these guys that they could rework and refurbish up if the need for that kind of thing arises. While he's doing that, the other two, Mutiny and Rayna, are resting up by the fire. And then that's when another Verbeeg appears. Verbeegs, for people that don't know, I'll throw one on screen. They're kind of like a distant cousin of Furbolgs. These like Bigfoot kind of humanoid, semi-intelligent characters, normally evil in nature, are the Verbeegs. I do tell one of them. I think was it Mutiny who rolled well, or was it Raina? No, it was someone. I told them that they're definitely not native to the Frostgales. They're not native from this land. They're probably a bit more from the southern mountains or something. So anyway, yes, as they're resting, another Verbeeg appears. This one seems to be female. We're carrying a basket with some chilled meat, some cheese, some strange metals in them, and she has like flowers in her hair. And when she sees the two sitting around the fire, she immediately like chucks the basket down. She just shouts, "Where's Doug?" and like tackles Raina to the floor. And there's a big moment there where they're not sure if they're going to kill each other. There's some spells used. There's some intimidation, some persuasion rolls used. Eventually, though, however, they manage to convince Garg to just go away and live another life. Just get away with her life. And she does. She takes two of the goats which are in the fireplace, and you'll see those on the map as well. And yeah, and they just let her go. Stronus was very, very against letting the Verbeeg go, but the other two kind of just pushed him into along their line of thought. And yeah, so Garg is free. Stronus did give the hint that oh, you two are going to forget. You're going to regret that. This is an evil creature. Now it's let free. It's probably just going to unleash its revenge on the town, you know. And he's not wrong. Like, Garg will remember this, and I plan to use her again later on in the campaign. She will be a returning villain, absolutely for sure, to get revenge or do something. So yeah. The mead barrels that they find, there's like 15 of them. They weigh like 20 kilos each. There's no way they're getting them back. So they journey back. They tell Feth Morin like where they are. They've got like a little bit of proof to say like the area's clear. You can go send people out, and of course he gives them their reward. And at this point, I start trickling in the next plot point. One of the dwarven workers who makes caskets, who they saw making caskets as they went in, kind of brushes past Stronus and like drops a piece of paper on the floor, and she kind of goes and like takes his hand and goes, "Oh, you dropped this," and then she walks off, and on it just says, "You will be approached by another. Do not trust him. Meet me in the shrine tonight." And like all kind of like looking around going, "Oh, okay, this is a bit weird." And then before long, sooner or later, they are approached by another dwarf who seems to have like this entourage of other dwarves around him. And this guy is Merin Throth. He is a ambitious character. He seems to have like like I said, he has like ambitions to make Goodmead great again. He's in the runnings to be the next speaker. He seems to have this entourage just seem to follow him around, like just laugh at all his jokes and things like that. And there seems to be some sort of history between Merin and Feth. Something strange going on there. He almost tries to take credit for for like finding his stuff on behalf of the party. And like as the party begin telling him what happened, he kind of just stops them halfway through, and like almost like he knows what they're going to say, kind of things like that. Yeah, it's very peculiar character, and he more or less just introduces himself and wanders off. And that will come up in the next session if they do that. It will be the whole political stage. Merin, for you guys as the listeners, is actually in league with a character of Targos, which the party is yet to go to next. So basically, a thieves guild almost has like infiltrated one of the cities, and has basically kind of like taken over Targos, which is this city. It's also where one of the missing people from the missing persons quest. So it's one location they need to go to, and this Merin Throth is in the payroll of the leader of Targos there, with the goal of obviously is to set up Goodmead as a financial front so they can fund their businesses. and things like that. So that's what Merrin's goal is to kind of to like lie and cheat his way into becoming Speaker. There's a bit more as well, but that might come up next time. The big plot point that's going to happen next is when they go see this dwarf, whose name is Olivessa Railbarrow. She's the adopted daughter of this Speaker who died. She's going to be trying to convince the party to like try and discredit Merrin and to like find another Speaker, or attempt to like maybe elevate one of the party members to the Speaker. And the first thing that she'll try and do to try and persuade them to say like Merrin is not a good man is she'll ask them to check the Speaker's body, and when they do, they will find with good enough medicine checks that the Speaker was actually shot with multiple arrows, poisoned arrows, before the fight. So the original everyone seems to think that the Speaker was killed during the giant attack on the warehouse, and well, yes, he was bludgeoned. He was actually shot beforehand, so it was actually someone else that had killed the Speaker before Ethan went out. So yeah. But that's more information for next time, really. Yeah, so session was okay. It was a good, nice long session. A bit of combat, a bit of RP. Yeah, great session, in fact. Sorry for the rambly episode this time. I've kind of written half a script, and the rest of it I kind of just trailed off into my own thoughts. I don't think I'll be doing that again in the future. I like the more structured ways. It's just a bit more time to make the script and then stuff like that. Anyway, thank you for listening. Apologies for the ragtagginess and the late return. We will see next time, whenever that will be, what will happen next. Right, that was session 5, a good Mead and a Verbeeg. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time. Thank you.